Hey, everybody. Caught me out jamming out to a little bit of 10 years after. Yeah, I have to say, I was one huge fan of Alvin Lee. So, anyway, good Monday to you. Trust everyone. Let me push down that button so we don't have an earthquake in here, which actually here in Colorado, we actually did. Believe it or not. So go figure, eh? So as you can see, I'm still driving here. That's cool. I know where we're going. Maybe you don't, but I do. I guess that's the only thing that's important, isn't it? So thank you for all coming in. Just favor upon you all. We all need favor. The more as we go through this book, and we're getting near the end now. I'm not going to be doing the invocations. That's not wisdom. But what we are showing is, I think, a unique, different perspective. So I think our ancestors could have used some favor because obviously they didn't have it. They got screwed, literally. And that's not a figure of speech. So great favor upon your lives. And I just speak restoration. I need restoration. We all need restoration. This is it's when, let me see. I want to put this in a coherent matter that it actually makes sense. So when you become aware, Jeff and I, he asked the question, well, what does it mean to become awake? Well, I think that could be defined in many different ways for many different individuals, because I think individually it is an individual's journey. But I think there's some guideposts that kind of say, well, this shows you're on the right path. And for myself, is that when you realize that this is an illusion, this life is it's an illusion. And when you become aware of that, it's like, you're in the Body Snatchers movie. It's like, holy crap, man. It's like, are you awake? What do you mean awake? Nothing. Now, if you see a bulldog with a head of a dude on it playing a banjo, get the hell out of there. So anyway, hello, everyone. So good to see you. Thank you, all you moderators. If Lois is still agreeable, we'll have Lois on this Wednesday. So looking for that. Been talking with Mr. Brian over there at Milky Way Weekly. Getting back stronger every day. Hello, Chicago. And we're hoping to see him back on his channel there real soon. So Brian, I know you've turned the corner, buddy. Speaking of which, this flu that is going around, it's selective in age. I guess this is where, never look at myself as a senior, but that's how it's classified. Not so much. Hitting the 20s and 30s really hard. Maybe that's something in the DNA. I don't know. But be careful out there. It's nothing to screw around with. Hello, Patrick. We'll be on tomorrow with Talking with the Planets. And want to get Joe Stapien on here as well. Got some people that have asked to be on, and we're going to do it. One of the things that, as we have gone down this journey, hi, Mary, how are you doing? Thank you, dear. Big hug to you. I love it. We got the best people here. I swear we do. Every one of you in here. I can see you in the chat room, and it's moving by pretty quickly. I need to get that Evelyn Wood speed reading class back up again. So, Lori, good to see you, my dear. Valerie, Flight Risk, I'm glad to see you're still with us. Jamma, I love it. Good to see you. Who's else in here? Horses, Not Zebras. Love that. Hello. Sarah K, good to see you. Barry, Peace Man, good to see you. Brian, Tactical Sovereignty, good to see you, my dear. I love tacos. Welcome. Earth Angel Dawn, hello, how are you? Michael, I think that's right. Lisa C, Amy, the amazing Maisie. Creative, hello, Ruth, how are you doing? Kindred Spirit Tarot, hope everyone has subscribed over her. Marvelous, talented people here. Just love conquers all, yeah. It's the only way. There were some really good songs. Who was it? English Dan and Dan, who was it? English Dan and John Forcolti, Love is the answer. Yeah, anyway, I digress. But no, not really. Love is always the only way. I'll share a story with you. Back about a decade ago, was facing some challenging issues. And I remember that was really kind of where the seed began to open up and germinate deeply. And the point is that I was doing very deep meditation on a lot of time on these walks. You can, I used to run a lot and enjoyed it. And you can get into that rhythm where it's a form of deep meditation. You're literally in a different reality, a different zone, and focused in on love, and had an amazing journey in seeing how the force of love works. And in its pure action, there's nothing that can absorb it. So for whatever it's worth. So we're going to get into the book. We're 3/4 the way through. And seriously, folks, this is like getting into an amusement park, right? And you've got the ticket, and they've got all the freaking warnings up there, right? The only thing they don't have here is height requirement. And so you read this whole list of why you shouldn't read the book, the history of the book, and so for the curious, well, that's like throwing gasoline on a candle. It's like, well, yeah, I'm going to get in line on this. And so here we go. And it has been an adventure. Those of you took the time. I have sent out over 300, I believe, of the PDFs of the Libra Lilith. And if that book was ever meant to stay hidden, it should have never come over on this channel. And then you put my family name to it. I mean, come on. I mean, someone wrote me and said, well, doesn't that feel really weird? And I wrote them back and I said, well, it seems like Lilith was well aware of our family name before I came along. So never bothered me in the past, and certainly hasn't bothered me even now. How many of you have had near-death experiences? I've had 5. 3 I distinctly remember. 2, not so much. When I contracted spinal meningitis and Lyme disease, I was in a coma for 8 days. And I remember when I left reality, I had 105 temperature, and it was becoming very obvious that I was on the way out, man. I mean, I was standing on the platform with my ticket. Three. All right. I see Hadley. You got three. Lady Ann, two. All right. Renew. That's interesting. Uh, Darth Raven lost count. Well, that's interesting, even more so. Yeah. Isn't it interesting that, so let me ask you, did you fear it? I was meditating on this today when I was getting the program ready to go. And I'm the type of person that if I see this and if I write it, it's in there, man. It ain't going anywhere. It's in there. And so I began to think about last night. And I know you're saying, well, how did last night get in there? Well, because it's all connected. Um, I'm lying in bed and I can't sleep. And I keep thinking two thoughts. So now what do you do, Wayne? You've seen the reality as it is, known it for some time. Most of us do. It's just you have to, I don't know if accept it or just begin to understand there's another alternative point of view. So I'm laying there and I'm thinking about this. Ever since I left the religion that I was in, I don't hear the self-incrimination anymore. I don't feel the self-abuse of doubt. Never feeling that I'm not worthy enough. Those voices are gone. What I have now is solitude, peace. And then that got me to thinking then, all right, so when you break that matrix, that paradigm has shifted, then what are you left with? Well, I began to think about, well, the 5 times I can remember almost dying. And this warmth just came over me. It's very interesting. I think the warmth is one that when one is well assured of where one stands, and it was an overwhelming thought that flooded me. I never feared it. Not once. I got stung by, I lived in Texas and was on a riding lawnmower, and there was a bee hive, very large one, of Africanized bees. And the sound of the riding lawnmower disturbed them, and well, they started stinging me, and I went into anaphylactic shock. And I remember as the paramedics were putting me into the ambulance, I knew I was dying. I mean, I knew it. And it was odd because it was almost, there's a song I can remember, called Sweet Surrender. Bread sang it, David Gates. And it's really kind of like what it was. It was just, I remember I was literally hovering over my body in the ER. I could see it. I was gone. I knew it. And, they came in and hit me with, their EpiPen, the adrenaline. And I was back in, and yeah, weird, isn't it? So, were you upset coming back? I don't think so. I think my nature is one that I don't know. I've I have felt it before. When I went into the coma with a meningitis, subsequently Lyme disease as well, I knew then too. Um, but the times I can remember, folks, is that it was never one of fear. Never. They had me in the hospital, and I got overdosed. What an experience that was. And again, so no. Anyway, is it what out and then not back in? Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I'm just reading some of these comments, folks. So if I'm obviously stepping in the middle of a conversation going, sure, yeah, we've all done that, and you go, okay. So anyway, and I'm coming to a point on here. The study of the Liber, Lilith, it gives a picture of our origins in a certain point of view, from a certain perspective. And it ties in with so much what many of us have researched in other books. Every book I have a copy of, the Quran, Bible, the Torah, the Vedic. I mean, all of these books, I find direct correlation. I'm just trying to figure out who copied who. I mean, and we're going to get into that. So, yeah. And then what we're going to study about today, we're going to break the matrix. There have been others who have profited, I think, off of this, what I called in my past videos, the secret knowledge. And what I'm seeing now is where they got that from. L. Ron Hubbard. I remember I was with the law firm I had. The partners were very much into the est thing there in the 80s, and which was all connected to, Scientology. And I can remember back then going, wait a minute, who would think of this? I mean, in one aspect, Hubbard had certain insights that were basically, I think, hidden mysteries. And part of that, as you remember, those of you who went through the est thing, that they taught we're not all the same on the inside. Now, that's a freaky thought for a lot of religions. Because if you have a congregation and the reality is that you're sitting in there and you become awake, you're suddenly going to go, now, wait a minute. It's like, why am I here? It's like what we're going to read about Lilith. When she gets one of her lovers, it pulls you. And the problem is, as I wrote to someone yesterday, was, you know what we are? We're a virus. That's what we are. You can't put us into a former environment that all of us came out of, most of us, in a structured, organized discipline of thought, a dogma. Joe, we're going to get you on, buddy. I'm thinking I just saw Joe Sapiens in here. Got to get this. I want to get him on probably next Wednesday. Joe, if you got the time, you send me the email and we'll get the line. But so you look around, and it truly is what the Matrix showed. The first time, Neo got injected back into the Matrix. You're the virus now. And the Matrix doesn't like that. You're a threat. And I'll just say it for the record. Most of us are the biggest threat to the God of this reality. And, knowledge is a weapon. It's a powerful weapon. And when you have knowledge, particularly that others don't have access to, like we're getting here, you begin to have much more powerful knowledge. And as we're going to do a series here, not right after this one, but probably the other one coming down, the fact of how to begin to prepare to meet the challenge on the other side. We've talked about this, and this book really has brought front and center for me the necessity to know if spirits exist. And I'm sure we all hope that they do, because that means, there may be a poquito chance that consciousness is in fact transmuted. That's what we all hope for. And so if spirits do exist, then I think that this is the time to start being able to spar, get your test in line. Listen, I had one. Most of you had one last week. Regrettably, there were several hundred that failed. I'm happy to say the vast majority of us passed. And when you pass a test, guess what? You get to advance. That's the cool thing. And you begin to learn, love conquers all. No weapon formed against me can prosper. You begin to say, yeah. And back to the point here specifically, there are spirits out there, folks. You don't want to get on the other side and just be shuffled like some piece of furniture, because you don't have a clue about what's going on. I'm not saying I do know what's going on, but I've been close enough to the door that I didn't fear it. And it was part of my awakening as I look back. Just didn't realize it. So let's get going. Hey, Caroline, good to see you. Cairo, your channel's coming up, and I know you invited me on, so we're going to do it. So let's rock and roll, folks, because knowledge is mind coitus. I'm telling you, hear me out on this. It's better than sex, because all sex is, for the most part, 90% mental. Now that 10%, woo! Anyway, all right. So our point for today is this. We've all got to realize, and this is the stark, cold reality. There are no true humans living on the earth today. That just freaked me out. But that's the hardcore reality. Listen, regardless if it's this story or the one that's out there that the majority of the world believes, or another story, somewhere, or you can take the story that this is just spontaneous matter. Consciousness is neither born nor dies. It just is for a brief time and goes back into the ether. I don't like that. And if you believe in reincarnation, well, guess what? Here's the good news, sweetheart. You can die and look into the future and go, I'm coming back. So you get to live in fact, all reincarnation is future-based. If you believe it, we're all living the future of our past lives. Okay. So what this story has taught in graphic detail, and oh boy, all I got to say is suck it up, Cupcake, because it's time to put the big boy britches on. And we have got to begin to face some hardcore realities. Listen, the Human Genome Project validated everything that this book wrote about 2,600 years ago. We're just catching up to it, which tells me that there has been a changing of the guard. All right. So there was a story that just came out about the sloth, the giant sloth that lived down in Belize and went extinct about 12,000 years ago. And they blamed the extinction on the appearance of man. So this thing stood about 13 feet tall. So my point is here, which reality are we dealing with? There was a time this planet where giants lived. Everything was gigantic. We don't talk about that in paleontology. We don't talk about so much in the fact that asking what happened. Sometimes it's almost difficult to think that we're in the same reality, but yet we have the bones, them bones, that tell us this was a reality. So the direct implication is this earth has changed radically. And apparently, in some cases, very quickly. In fact, there is a paper out. You can go over on Suspicious Observers. Ben Davidson has the link on it. Great paper. It's a white paper, free to download. You should read it. The professor, who's a brilliant genius, I believe it's at Northwestern, actually confirms the book that I wrote about nearly 18 years ago. That tectonic shifting is not just what they have said, a slow process. I think the evidence that I found back in 2001 was that, in fact, that's what's happened very quickly. So getting back to this, which reality? So was man here 12,000 years ago? Or with the samples of now they're finding with the rhinovirus? Yes, the rhinovirus, dating nearly 8 million years ago. Some say they can go back 250 million. Interesting thing about the rhinovirus is that, well, it seems to have a need a symbiotic relationship with Homo, man. And then if you get into this whole thing, because we're going to start getting into some of the weirdness, holiness, righteousness, unrighteousness, wickedness, all predicated upon a Eastern philosophy. But if the book, which it certainly has been tested, is what it is to have been and is, the question is then, are we reading about a very recent event? Or are we reading about some distant time that time cannot even measure? I mean, throw out the 6,000 year theory thing out. Just throw it out. Come on, it's not even realistic. And you can throw out the make-believe genealogy. that I was taught. So let's get ready to rumble. All right, ready? All right. The other reality we have to begin to face is this. And this will help those of you who are looking at this as part of the initiation, preparing for the other side. Many different spirits fill the vessels of the mud body. We are not all the same spirit. We're not. Impossible by the own admission of every holy book out there. They all admit to this. We just never saw it from that point of view. So we had talked about the fallen ones. This is a story that is replete in all of the stories. They came down, taught us magic, taught us, how to smelt metals. Again, isn't it odd? The Bronze Age was before the Iron Age, but the Iron Age is and required less technology. It should have been the other way around, but it's not. No one can explain that. How did the Bronze Age actually go before the Iron Age? So we look at our history in our past. You got to give this some credence, folks. And if it is, in fact, based upon a truth, we got a problem here, right here in River City. Because it means that our species have been victims. And I'll just say it, we've been raped. And when you think about hell, turn it around. This God, he's running. I think Lilith in this story is trying to, in some weird perverted way, help us build the indictment to bring this before the autogen. It's our legal case because we've been used as pawns is the only way to look at this. All right, so the children of the second king, we got into the structure. Go back and look at, I think, number 7. You'll get it. So the children of Lilith, who are of the second king, they arise from the fornication with sons and daughters of men. They are compound. One part is spirit and one part earth. See, I looked at the spirit. If we can weigh that there's a universal loss of mass of something out of all bodies at the moment of death, then, all right, so we're talking matter here. Just not of a matter that we're familiar with or have actually defined. I believe science will one day get back to where it should have been. So fornication, well, that fornication is defined as anything outside of marriage. Well, marriage implies that that is a law of something. Why is marriage necessary? I know many, and Sting, I can think of, Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. I mean, I can think of another one. They didn't need to get married under some ancient curse. That's what it is. But if you break that, then you are a fornicator. Well, let's just be honest, folks. If this still applies today, we're fucked. Oh, I didn't mean to say the F word. Just drop the F-bomb. Yeah, but in this case, it really does apply. All right. They dwell upon the earth. Now, we're going to get more and more on that. They never leave. Never. Until this cracks up or gets burned up or something. They outlive ice ages. They outlive comet hits. It doesn't impact them. It's just a different way that they walk. I believe it is in the New Testament that says about them, they walk in the waterless places. That gives you all the indication, folks. That's the only one place that you can find that. It would be the moon. I digress, though. They are the offspring of Lilith in her multitude of forms, and her daughter, Naamah, and of Samael, her consort, God. Among them are the giants engendered by the fallen powers on mortal women. Again, why are they messing with our women folk? This is messed up. I mean, they were fighting words. They are taller than the common, that's common man, and more beautiful. Boy, doesn't that kind of tell you something about the vanity, right? Spirits of earth, they are called from their flesh part, and evil spirits because they work destruction on earth and cause troubles and afflict the children of men. You know, this is like going into a poker game where everyone at the table is in on the deal. But you can't win a hand unless they allow you to win a hand. Just enough to keep you suckered, to continue to buying. Yeah, you can fill it in behind that. Now, the spirits of earth, this is really interesting. Of the spirits of earth are two sorts that differ after the manner of their birth. This kind is more spirit than flesh, than the other kind, which is more flesh than spirit. Get this down, folks. All of you practicing witches and magicians, get this down. The arising of the first kind. Lilith comes to the bed of a man and stirs his member. She catches the sparks of his seed and bears them away inside her womb. Lilith gives birth and nurtures them at her own breast. She receives bodies. Some receive bodies out of the essence of fire. Now, this is so interesting. I know we talked a bit about this last time, but look into this. They're still here. Many of us see them. Many of you see them. They are hot against the skin and dart through the air with quickness of flame and strange laughter. Their dwelling place is in marshes and upon mountains, some of the air and some of forest. Their faces twist from moment to moment, and they transform their shape. The name of this kind that is more spirit than flesh is the Lilith. Now, I can remember up there in Caravals County in California, in the Redwoods, all I know is what to call them, they were fairies. They're there, they're real. And if you have the right kind of spirit, they'll appear to you. But this just lays it all out. It's why you go into forest for certain conjuring, certain places, marshes, mountains. I, for one, love meditating in the mountains. There's a different spirit than the spirit that you would find down at the beach. Or I know some people that live in Louisiana in the bayous. Love it. You talk to a lot of the shaman down there. You know, bios have powerful, powerful energy. All right, the arising of the second kind. The arising of the second kind, Samuel comes to a woman in her uncleanness, and we all know what that means, and mounts her and stirs up her desire and leaves his seed. Now, there are a lot of great books out there. I think Dean Koontz is one that I remember a couple of his books where in his writings, Rosemary's Baby was founded on this very principle. Yeah. Then her husband mounts her and mingles his seed with that of the serpent. Now, this is cross-species contamination. It's literally what it is. We're smart enough. We have to be accountable for what we know. We have science now. And we can weigh it against here, and we can say, well, let's just say this is a metaphor. Well, even if it's a metaphor, then we could simply go, the metaphor would imply that there is a contamination of bloodlines taking place here. Plain and simple. Mixture of DNA. Rearranging DNA. Rearranging us. Or it happens sometimes that Lilith excites the lust of a man, and he lies with his wife by candlelight in their blood, in her blood, and looks with lust upon her nakedness in forbidden ways. Now, this goes back, this is not even in our culture anymore. I mean, that's how far back it goes. But I think there's profound truth here. His issue is made unclean, and the child is given over to Lilith as her own. Now, could this hold true even for today? You know, we're going to do a story down the road, but something's going on. There's a lot of people missing. Children of the second kind, we continue. These children grow more swiftly than common children and possess great strength and intelligence. Again, is this still happening today? They are also more hairy and distort their faces with a sly smile and deceitful glances. Hey, baby, who's your daddy? The way to know them is by this. When they are still in their youth, they begin to lose the hair at the crown of their head. In shame over their nakedness, they cover themselves. And the name of the kind that is more flesh than spirit is called Lilin. You remember the previous slide? Here we had the Lilith. Now we have the Lilin. This is interesting. You know, if you're doing the org chart, doing the old genealogy thing, yeah, this is telling us something. Let's talk about the first then of the Lilin. Cain, who was born out of Eve from the lust of God, was the first of the Lilin. Now, folks, this is going to tie things together. If you've been like me, could never figure out, well, what the hell happened in Genesis 4 and 5? What's going on? Where did Cain go? How you know, where did Cain come from? Well, that whole story. And then they give you this cockamamie story where there are two different bloodlines that have virtually the same names. What? Yeah. So from this kind was Enoch born, who was called the son of Cain, and the son of his son, and the son of his son. For all the line of Cain are children of Lilith. Now, back in the day when I was a practicing Christian, did a study on this. I mean, with this whole bloodline of Noah. And I had problems with this nearly some 14 years ago. There was indications of bloodline. This is what they were talking about, the purity of Noah. But the daughters, the contamination was everywhere. And in here is a very bold statement. All the line of Cain are children of Lilith. Nor have they perished from the world, but endure to this day. Folks, this is the answer for what my questions were 30 years ago about Mark, the Gospel of Mark. We never found this in the Bible. They never perished. Their bodies may have, but their spirits are still here. They're walking this planet. This is eye-opening. Now get this. Their seed is mingled with the seed of Adam. Now here is wisdom. Is this why? This is why there are no true humans walking the earth today. Mankind is not a pure species. We are hybrids. Our bloodlines have been polluted and contaminated by God himself. All the evidence, all the indictments will go back to this deity that created this mess. It is an indictment. We're living the consequences of this intrusion. We live in a living hell. And Lilith is going to explain to you why this is also a reality. The lost children. Allow me to get some tea, thank you. Any child born from wickedness, an unlawful lust, is given over to Lilith as her own. Now, folks, this is a controversial subject, abortion. We're doing Lilith a favor. Each one is sacrificed on her altar and she receives them. Now, I know people don't like to think that. Yeah. In one sense, it could be said that the true humans are the exception. But how to know who and what a true human actually is impossible. Now, there may be a bloodline. I don't know how. Any bloodline, including Seth's, could in fact be of the true human bloodline. Now, Lilith, she holds its life in her hand, even as that of a young chick that has fallen from the nest. Nonetheless, she does not kill them, but comes to sport with them in their dreams. The way to know her presence is this. The child begins to laugh and gurgle as it is sleeping in the cradle. Then it is a good to wake it up by tweaking it upon the nose, lest Lilith forget herself in her affection and kiss the child and draw forth its breath of life between her lips. Now, this is how the stories, the wise tales, we call it SIDS today. Doctors still really don't know why. Now, no one likes to think this side. We like to think that they're all going to heaven, but that's an illusion. Heaven doesn't exist. If it's a heaven by this God, that ain't heaven. You just walked into hell. You just thought they changed the sign on you. Because as above, so below, as below, so above. If we're living in a hell down here, folks, then by God, it's hell up there as well. The woeful child. Such a child must be watched with care as it grows older and guided in righteous paths. Now, here's my comment. It is unclear as to exactly what is the meaning of righteous, other than the current paradigm of the God construct. That's the problem here. It implies wickedness is of one nature of God, but then the counter nature, the antithesis of God, would be righteousness. But all originating from the same source. It is quick to rage and readily errs. It eats like a wolf, but is always hungry. It is heavy with sighs and gloomy looks, nor can it find joy in the world. Now, this is odd because I said, is this startling as to the term joy? How many living today actually find joy, much less lasting joy? I challenge you. Write at the end of the day, what you experience through your day, and it'll tell you exactly the truthfulness of this answer. Now, here's one. Better the rod to be broken on its back than its soul descend into Gehenna. That comes right out of the book of Proverbs, or Proverbs came right out of this book. Notice that the spirit, excuse me, I didn't catch that. It's the spirit. Excuse me, not the spirit, but the soul. So apparently the soul can be broken. I think the spirit can be too. In Proverbs, it speaks about particularly parents that are abusive to their children and who later become abusive adults. What they do with bullies and the such, what they are attempting to do is break your spirit. And a broken spirit, when a person's spirit is broken, rarely is it ever mended back. It says, and this is the strange one right here, better to learn fear of the light than love the darkness. There's so much to discuss right here. Why should we be taught to fear the light? I mean, this is so mind-bending as to the possible ramifications to our species, man. Why fear the light? This makes no sense. None. Better to learn fear of the light. This, what that is saying is retribution, vengeance, punishment. The light is all of these things. Well, you know what? I don't think I like the light either, if that's what awaits for the light. What the hell kind of light is that? Fear, the light? Odd choice of words, is it not? You wouldn't put fear and light together. Yeah. The new moon Lilith. At the time of the new moon, Lilith and her brood come to lie with the children of unrighteousness. Well, if this is still going on, we're screwed, folks. Just saying the numbers. And with those who lust and seek after wickedness and commit adultery. If true, then humanity is screwed in so many ways, for this number could be in the billions. She makes them to blemish themselves in sleep. Interesting way of saying she is innocent and does not the God of most religions say the same thing. The spirits that serve her number is 480 legions. Using the Roman number of 5,000 for each legion represents 2.4 million personal spirits that serve her. Here is mystery for the wise. Let him who has eyes see it, read it. Yeah. Heed. They are of the kind called the Lilith, and their leader is named Samuel, who was ruler of the spirits of the air. Samuel, King of Kings, Lord of all lords, first archon, Prince of lies, creator of man, seducer. The Unholy Union. Of all the offspring of these unholy unions rise up to Lilith, and she rears them as her own. They seek shelter beneath her broad skirt that are as broad as the heavens. Think about this, folks. There's wisdom there. They hang like clusters of grape ripe from her innumerable breasts. Their cries are as waves of the sea. A mountain of dung arises from their droppings and breeds flies and pestilence. All are naked and shivering. They seek and are not fulfilled. With blackened eyes and haggard cheeks, they lust after blood. This is just one screwed up freaking reality show you and I are living in. If any of this is true, even 1%, wow. Think of the innumerable odds we're against, folks. The sleeping lover. To the man who lives alone in his bed, Lilith comes, or one of her daughters. To the solitary woman, Samuel comes, or a son of Samuel. This is the first time there's actually mention of that word son directly associated outside of Cain to Samuel. All alike are children of Lilith and partakers of her powers. Isn't that odd? She's the one who empowers them. Lilith visits both those who are awake and those who are asleep. When she comes to the sleeping man, oftentimes he wakes in her embrace and must submit. So much for free will. She can only be thrown off. What is this? It's a way out, folks. He who has ears, let him hear. She can only be thrown off with much difficulty. Only one who is strong of mind can defeat her, but she can be defeated. This is the time now to be tested. It's what Origins, that's why he castrated himself in the public square in Alexandria. She wrestles with him and takes her pleasure by force. The only way you can define this is rape. Immediately in that word they actually use in there is force. In fornication, she has the strength of a warrior. It's not her strength. It's the humans. He groans in her arms like a drawn bow and releases his seed. Must be something pretty powerful with this semen. The waking lover. To her waking lover, she appears as a glowing mist upon the air. Its color is the light of the moon that shines through the water. Her image ripples like the surface of a pool stirred by a breeze. It fleets away when the eyes seek it and returns when the gaze is averted. Her features alter from the moment to moment, even as a column of smoke is never the same, but forever renewed. Again, that key word renewed, interesting term in there. The eyes catches her countenance, and it is the sublime beauty of a young maid. Again, the eye catches her countenance, and is the face of a harlot, lined with sin. A moment more, and it becomes the face of a male youth. Then it is strange and wild, the countenance of a demon. So Lilith dances in her husk before her lover. Yeah, this is, you take this and you start breaking this down. All I can say, this is a very powerful spirit. One that can transmute physical matter, can actually manipulate photons. The sin is, we are gods. And sin is when a god who would worship another god, it loses its divinity, its divine, and is no longer a god. So we'll cut it off right there. Give me 1 second. Yeah, pretty intense, but I feel like someone's given us kind of the playbook. I mean, literally, I've been writing this out word for word, and you step back and you're going, I mean, last week we learned, in the writings of Solomon, other writings about how each body is controlled by a spirit. Thank you, Mother Nature. Appreciate that. Thank you, bloodsuckers. So to me, for myself, I don't fear this book. Now, I have no need to do I don't need to invoke Lilith. Got no desire to. The way I see this, we're the ones with the power here. And if we could just get our species to realize that, there's no need to bow down before any unseen God or any God, period. No God would desire itself to be worshiped. And maybe, I don't know. Then we're going to talk about, are we seeing the collapse? This Thursday on my radio show, I think we're witnessing the collapse of our species. They're talking about putting brain implants now to begin to alter people. Google's already writing patents to be able to get inside your head. That's a prisoner. I don't want anybody in my head. There's enough of me in my head, and I don't need anyone to give me any head. Oh, wait a minute, that came out wrong. Excuse. But you get it. Yeah. Okay. We'll probably cut it off right there. But seriously, I mean, I don't know about you, but when you talk about longevity of life, if it's going to be where I have implants in my cerebral cortex, do you know we might as well talk about this. Do you know that in the next 2 years, you're going to be able to get bionic eyes? I think some people probably, if they can afford it, it's probably already being done. Bionic eyes that'll let you see in the dark. It's a transition of the gods, man. I'm telling you, they're fashioning us in their image, and I don't like this image. I don't like about implants being in my head. If you're going to be in my head, then the question is, can they drain my soul? I don't know. Well, folks, thank you for being here. I do appreciate it. Y'all are the best. And we get in deep discussions here. These are questions I think we have to answer ourselves. I think we as a species have to begin to answer these questions. And now that we're beginning to see the veil lifted, that we can actually now see a structure. I think this is where Paul got his revelation knowledge. He saw past the veil. So anyway, all right, folks, be good to yourselves. We'll see you tomorrow with Patrick Garrett and Talking with the Planets. And then Wednesday, we'll get Warrior Queen. Let's raise some money for her. Let's put some food on the shelves there and see what we can do for her. Thank you, Blazing River. Appreciate it. Thank you, all the moderators. Thank you, all the people in the chat room. Y'all are the best. Pat yourself on the back. Give yourselves a big hug. You're beautiful. You're unique. There's only one of you. And love you, man. And remember what the llama says. No drama. All right, folks. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.